Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright everyone, welcome to another weekly wrap up. This week we have finally some 5- and 6-star books to talk about after last week just feeling a little bit subpar, as I said. This one definitely, I had a great time, and even some of them that weren't like 5- or 6-star reads, I found very unique. I'm very excited to talk about them with you. Before we get too deep into that, I of course want to welcome a new patron. And pardon me, my dear, if I pronounce this incorrectly, but I believe her name would be Shayna. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm so sorry if I said it wrong, but we have a new patron. Thank you so much and welcome. If you are a patron, you'll know how important you are to me. Everyone who watches my channel is, but you know, government and taxes just continue to try to take any joy that I get out of doing this. And so I'm very thankful that you guys continue to support me and encourage me in doing this because, you know, even if I wasn't able to do this full time, I would keep doing it. But this is just the greatest, it's the greatest joy. I don't want to give it up just because the government makes it a little bit hard. So I know that's always a downer to start an episode on, but it is the real facts. And I don't ever want, my excitement of books and my happiness of doing this to feel like fake or like I'm putting on a show for anyone. And so that's why I share those little bits behind it. And that's why, again, if you're a patron and you see my behind the scene vlogs, you see all of it, because this isn't just really like a persona that I put on. Yes, I try not to share every little sad tidbit or every tiny little detail of my life. Some things should still be private, but the way that I've created my channel, I want the things that I show to be the genuineness of me. Otherwise, I would just feel too split in between things. That's not how everyone's going to do this. And that doesn't mean that they have to do it the same way. You know, it doesn't mean that they're fake if they have a persona that they put on, because we all have to do what we have to do to protect ourselves. Sorry that this got really philosophical, but these are just the thoughts that come in my head when I sit before a camera. You know, being a 31-year-old woman who I've been doing this for over 6 years, there are things that you have to work through in your head about why you keep doing this. And for me, it always goes down to the heart of, I want to share good books with people. Sometimes bitch about bad books, but 95% of the time, I want to be sharing good books with people. And I find that if I keep that at the heart of things, the parts that surround it that are supposed to be there are, and the parts that are need to like fly off like they do. So anyway, that was enough of that. But welcome, Shayna. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. Thank you to everyone who does. Thank you if you're watching this. If you don't want to support monetarily, or you don't, or you can't, just liking this video, leaving a comment, saying something encouraging, they all really help. They really, really do. So yeah. Let us get into what we have to talk about. We don't have a ton of time. We have 7, but like I said, I have quite a bit to say about some of these. So I think I'll still find a way to talk for a long time. You know me. So the first one I want to talk about is Forbidden King by Laura Pavlov. This is book 3 in the Magnolia Fall series. This is a series that I started with book 2 when I received an ALC of it. And I had an ALC of this one as well. So this one was narrated by, I keep this, CJ Bloom and Jason Clark, 2 lovely narrators. I have loved them for many years, and I continue to enjoy how they narrate for me. And this one was a best friend's brother. It's a friends to lovers. It's a small town blue collar hero. He is a like woodworker. He's a carpenter, and he creates things, which I thought was really cool in here. And this is very much like a found family type of story as well, where there are these, like, when they were kids, they all became very close through adversity and everything. And now that they're grown up, the men particularly have all like banded together and really kind of have helped like either raise younger siblings or support each other in their business endeavors and just be a community. And I love that. I really, really do. This one being the friends to lovers, we have Sailor, who is the heroine, and she is just opening up a romance bookstore. So yes, there were lots and lots of references to being authors and book owners and the things we love about books and people wanting to read smut, but they're being afraid to say so, and just all the things in there that did get a tad heavy-handed sometimes. I know some people just love that, like, almost breaking of the fourth wall where the author is commenting on it. I tend to get a little annoyed by it because it feels sometimes as an opportunity to just, like, say everything they're feeling about the industry at the time. And I don't know, it just depends on the mood. The author absolutely has a right to do that. And that's not a thing that had me dock points from this book at all. We'll get to what my pluses and minuses were. But it is also like, it can jar me out of the story. That's more why breaking the fourth wall is a dangerous thing, is that if it throws you out of the story, you know, you need to suspend a certain disbelief into it, right? We know that. So this is a perfectly beautiful story. There's no real extra angst besides kind of that, like, trying to hide it from the brother or whatever. There is also some drama with the parents of the heroine who are wanting to get back into her life, and she isn't sure if she wants to trust them with it. You know, there's a little bit of drama in regards to, like, that type of stuff, you know? But otherwise, it's a pretty low angst type of story. The only angst that comes from it is whether the brother is going to accept them being together. And this is always kind of a rough thing for me in Brothers Best Friends. Like, I really want to love Brothers Best Friends because it's usually, you know, there's some good forbiddenness without it being, like, too taboo or anything. But in this one, like, King is, sure, he's been seen as a playboy. I get it, whatever. But he is such a good friend to Sailor's brother, and to her, he's been there to comfort her when her brother was in trouble when they were young. She stayed for a while at King's house and became really close with him. And so why wouldn't her brother be okay with it? For me, I always saw there being more of a danger of, like, you're lying to your brother. That is where the drama is going to come from, is that you're lying to it, right? Okay? Anyway, that can happen in any friends to lover, brother's best friend. What actually kind of downgraded this one for me was the way that he was thinking about her. I know this is a tune, this is a song I've sung, a tune I've had for a while, but the way that both of them was thinking about the other people's dicks and tits was exhausting. Like, there is a particular scene that I almost DNF'd the book. Like, I almost put it down, is they're having literally this Easter Sunday get together, not because they're particularly religious, but, you know, it's the holiday. I get it. They have, like, a brunch or a barbecue at King's house. So all the family's there, and he gets so turned on by her at this fucking barbecue that he needs to go in the bathroom and jack off before he can, like, go back to the party. He's that turned on in the moment that he has to go and beat himself off. But it's used, of course, for the sexual tension because she happens to be in his bathroom hiding a little thing for him. There's this little game they play. It was very cute. I don't have a problem with it. But she's hiding something in his shower for him to find and think about her in the shower. That's definitely what she's doing, which, again, is fine. I respect it. But he has to come in to jack off in the toilet. So she has to, like, close the curtain and be quiet so that he can't hear her while he's jacking off at an Easter party while all of his family and friends are outside. And he's so turned on by her that he has to go do that. It was a little bit ick. If you can't tell from how I'm saying it, I felt a bit ick from that point on about this hero because they just wanted in each other's pants so much. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is why the brother should be a little bit nervous about you wanting to be with his sister. I don't know. Overall, it was a very cute story. I didn't slam this one for it. Part of it because it was an ALC. You guys know, I am just a little bit nicer to ARCs and ALCs because I try not to let my personal feelings get in the way for stuff unless it's really bad. So, and a lot of people are loving this one. A lot of people love Laura Pavlov. They're okay with it. I don't know if she's going to be for me because this is the second one in a row where I was just kind of underwhelmed, you know, but it's hard for me to turn away free audiobooks. You know, I love reviewing them, but I might just have to pass up next time. We'll see. So I ended up at a 4 with it, though it felt more towards 3 than 4, but I did round up. So just know that. There weren't really any trigger warnings except for, like, there was a little bit of, like emotional abuse that came from her stepfather that she struggles with, but I don't know. So you keep in mind if that's something in your life that struggles, but it wasn't too much of a trigger warning for me at all. All right, moving on. I had another book that was 4 stars, but it was for 4 stars for a very different reason. And I did like this one a lot better, right? This is why a rating system is so imperfect, because there's different reasons we give things different scores. So I read The Bones of Love by Megan Montgomery. This is book 3 in the Last Responder series, which I had never heard of. I've never seen this author before, if it wasn't for the author agency, which I know I've been talking about a lot. I know a few of you have been checking them out too, because I've been seeing that you're reading some of their arcs. This is a PR company that does romance novels. They also are the ones who do like Daisy Jane. They have audiobook opportunities, and they just have a large amount of authors that I haven't heard of most of them before. So it's been really great this year. I know I say this every week, but I just highly recommend, you know, if you're someone who wants to get into reviewing books, or you just like doing it as a reader. People who just want to read as readers, you are usually very welcome to do it. And the author agency, they only ask for you to do a post on your Instagram or TikTok, which I always pick Instagram, and then put your review on like Goodreads. They don't even ask for Amazon ones, which is great, because I went on a rant about Amazon recently that they are just trying to fuck me over with my reviews all of a sudden. But you don't even have to turn in an Amazon one for the author agency. You basically just have to have posted like a teaser on your Instagram and review it on Goodreads. So it's a great way to start. Anyway, side note, all of that, blah, 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 blah. I saw this cover of The Bones of Love get released, and I was like, I am intrigued. Okay, I was intrigued. Actually, I don't even think I saw the cover yet. I saw what the tropes were, and I signed up for it. And then I saw the cover, and I was really into it. I love this like old style pinup cover thing. Like, it's so cool. Although the pose that they have him in is kind of interesting, because that doesn't really happen in this too much. But anyway, this is a forensic anthropologist who is a little bit witchy. I had first heard that this was a witch and a priest. She wasn't that witchy, I will say. There wasn't as much as I thought. But then we have a Greek Orthodox priest, or he's about to become a priest. And the rules of this, based on what the author shared from her research, and, you know, I don't know if any of you are Greek Orthodox who are watching this. I'd love to know if this is true or not. But for the purposes of our story, a priest can not get married, but if you aren't a priest yet, you can be married. So the way they say is a married man can become a priest, but a priest cannot become married, because the way that they look at it is that your wife is supposed to be the closest person to you, and you don't want to have your attention divided between God and a wife. At least that's how it gets explained in this. Again, this isn't my it is my personal belief, but it's not for the point of this. And so we have Gus, who has finished his schooling. He's finished seminary. He's about to take his orders. And once he does, he'll basically be, doomed to celibacy forever, because, he isn't going to break his vows and have sex outside of marriage, and he won't be married. So then he wouldn't have that. And Decca is a friend. They've been friends for a while. They both have been secretly pining for each other. And she actually offers to marry him before he becomes a priest. And, he's like, why are you offering this? And she's like, well, we like each other. And, what they both are unafraid to say is they both really like each other. They do want to be having sex. They want to be married to each other. And this offers kind of the opportunity of her to appear that she's kind of helping him out, when really it's the both of them. And so they end up getting married. He takes his orders, and now they can be together, except it takes forever. It takes forever because Gus doesn't want her to feel like he only married her so he can have sex, which, it isn't why, but she does kind of think that. And he's not really helping it out by the fact of putting it off them having intimacy, because now she's like, so I'm just an afterthought for when you finally get horny enough, then we'll have sex. There was so much miscommunication. That's why this one was a 4-star. But there was so many beautiful moments in this book. And the way that it's they're very honest about certain things in their marriage, but then their desires and their wants, they keep so buttoned up. So it was very interesting. Like, they have this conversation about how they want to grow into a deep, like, love with each other. And that's where the bones of love, that's where the title comes from, is, you know, speaking to her, like, anthropologist side. He's like, we can build a skeleton of a faithful marriage, and eventually we'll add, like, the muscle and the flesh and the everything onto it, which I know might seem like a morbid answer, but we're dealing with a lot of death care in this series, which this is the first one in the series I've read. But Gus's family actually are morticians, and his older brother and sister and him have all worked in the mortuary career at different points as well. So that was very interesting. They have a great respect, obviously, for death and for caring for people who've died. And so that's very interesting because they've both worked in death care in different ways. You know, her in finding justice and learning the stories of people who've died, and him in caring for the freshly dead. So that was fascinating. And I know it won't be for everyone. It absolutely won't work for everyone. But I found it to be fascinating. And so even though them as a couple was very frustrating for a good amount of time, when they finally do pop the cork and get busy, it does get very sexy. They're very good at communicating in bed once they finally do. And then the other reason why I love this one so much is this book, you know, obviously is dealing with themes of death and grief. And we do have a very poignant death during the series, or during the book, during this book, because Gus's father is dying of cancer. And so we know at some point in this book that that's going to happen. And the most powerful scene in this book is the father does die in this book. And there's a scene with the three siblings, so Gus and his brother and sister, doing the death care for their father. And I know that that will be too much for some people. I absolutely understand. And the author has a very detailed trigger warning note for this. That's why I'm sharing about it. So you can read that note before having to be faced with it. But through the book, when you see the reverence they have and like what they see their duty to this past person is, and the way that they're caring for their father afterwards, that it's like their final goodbye to him, it was really beautiful. And there's some very hard parts of it, because you don't just get to wash their hair and, you know, clean them up and make them ready for their funeral. You also have to, you know, clean them out of things and do that. So that might be too much for people, I understand. But I found it deeply moving, and just the like peace and connection that the three of them got to have with their father in that moment and with each other. And it's really beautiful, because the older brother, he's the one who actually took over, like, and I haven't read his book yet. I really do want to read the other ones now after reading this one. He's the one who takes over the business. But again, they've all worked in it. And I find it very interesting as well. Just a little cheeky side note, that I read the Julia Wolf book was also about a family who works in death care. So I thought that was very interesting. That I've read 2 books about morticians this year, not what I would have expected. So yeah, I was very moved by it, but I know why it won't be for everyone. It's also not as like gory, or it felt very loving and respectful, because that's how they see it. This isn't a morbid thing, like it's their job. And I really like the discussions of the difference between like what Decca's job for the dead is and like what his family's is. And I also thought that religion was talked about in a very like non-oppressive way in this one. And I also thought it was interesting. I've never read anything about Greek Orthodoxy and like their Christianity and stuff before. And I love learning things. I really do. So that's why, after all that blabbing, I am really encouraging people to try this out, just because it was so unique. Like, how often do we read things like that, you know? And yeah, there are some heavier themes. This one's a bit angstier. That won't be everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But some of you are more curious people like me now and then, and this will be great. So it ended up being at a 4-star just because I said it was long and there was a lot of angst. But those very powerful moments really carried it through, and I want to read more from this author for sure. I love that she chose to focus on the death business and or death care. Sorry, we'll call it that. And that was really powerful to me. And it was a 3.5 on the spice scale. There was some dirty talk. There was some he's too big going on. And there was some breath play. So I actually, this is another one where a priest is very kinky and is afraid to share his desires with his partner. And Decca is only too excited to try them all out with him. So trigger warnings, as I said, there's death care, there's death of a loved one, there's cancer, there is some religious guilt, and some of that discussed in here. It also isn't just the death of that father that we discussed too. Decca, not too long ago, lost her grandmother, and she's actually living in the house of, is it her aunt or her grandma? See, I don't know. It might be an aunt. And dealing with trying to clean out the house and stuff is very difficult. So definitely there. All right. Enough. See, I told you I'd find a way to talk a lot. We know this. All right. Next up, I read Twisted Obsession by S. Massery. I had this on my TBR because I am trying to make my way through this whole series. I've read this series kind of wonky, out of order, all over the place, but this one is book 4. And this is one that was actually just coming out when I heard about the series. And I was very fascinated by it. I listened to the audiobook of this one. I snagged it. And this one is Teddy Hamilton and Kylie Stewart. Always a good time with Teddy, for sure. And this one is interesting because this one we're actually out of college now. The first 3 take place in college, at college level. And this one now we're at professional sports. And this is a student-teacher romance, but they're no longer student and teacher. Our hero, or the male character we'll call him, is Jacob, and Melody Cameron is the heroine. And now, what we will okay, the book starts with Melody woke up in the hospital with no memories, and she goes off to Denver to live with a distant cousin who doesn't really know anything about what she's been living the past couple of years. She has had these crazy injuries on her. She has scars all over her body, including one across her throat and on her wrists, and she just has scars all over. And she doesn't know how or why. So she's staying with this cousin, and they end up going to a hockey game. And at this hockey game, she gets recognized by Jacob, who hasn't seen her in 2 years. And when he discovers that she doesn't remember who he is, he's very curious about that. It's very clear that he knows her and that they had some type of relationship, but he doesn't just blurt out everything to her about who he was, because things didn't end so well between them, and he doesn't know if he wants her to fully remember everything. But he's also very curious about where she went, because she just disappeared from his life 2 years ago, and he has no idea where she went. And she only woke up, 3 months ago. So there's this good amount of time where neither he can't even tell her what she was doing, and she doesn't know where she was either. So I thought this was fascinating. And before I get into any deeper of it, I really liked how the amnesia was handled in this one. Honestly, I was very impressed, especially because one of the things I'll say it, bitch about with amnesia romance is how we reveal information. We either will have seen it all and then we see the person forget and we don't, we already know everything they need to remember, or we do these big long flashbacks where every other chapter is a memory they're remembering, and I just don't like dual timeline that way, so I don't love it. And I really loved in this one that her memories were kept as a suspense. This one read as suspense, where she can tell she was attracted to Jacob. She can tell that he's younger than her, so she's was he? She doesn't even know that she was a teacher. So all of these things are being drawn out. And again, Jacob isn't just straight up explaining everything, because he wasn't the best to her. He was a stalker to her, and they had some interesting kinks that they did, and her current state of being might not like those things, but he's doing them anyway. And then we discover that she and him had an affair because she was married and had an abusive husband at the time, and she was actually in the process of leaving him when she disappeared. So that's all I'll say about that part of it. But one of the big positives that kept me going is I loved how her amnesia was handled and how the information was doled out. Now, the other stuff I didn't like. So the somnophilia is the main kink in this one, okay? And now every book in the series has had at least a scene of somnophilia, I'll tell you that. And I don't mind that. If you don't know, somnophilia is having sex with someone who is asleep or passed out or cannot do anything while you fuck them. So that is somnophilia. I have a whole video on recommendations if you'd like to check it out. So I don't mind that kink. I like it. There are ways for it to be consensual, and there are many ways for it's not. Now, the main way that Jacob was doing this is he was drugging her a lot. They would be having drinks, and he slips something in, and he knows that she'll be out for a amount of time, or him sneaking into her house. And so there was a lot of it that was like straight up non-con for a good part of this one. Again, that's nothing new with this author. That's fine. But the mind games that got played along with that were a lot. Like, there was a lot of mind games going along with him fucking her in her sleep and everything. And then again, there's also still that ex-husband floating around that we have no idea where he went. We don't know who he is. So there's also like parts of her memory coming back where, was it Jacob who did this to her, or was it that ex-husband, or what? And so I found that to be very, very fascinating. So yeah, there was a lot that was good. I never was won over by Jacob. And I honestly, like, I felt for the heroine a lot, especially as her story unravels. Like, this woman is someone who is basically traumatized by people her whole life. She thought she was in a good marriage and then discovered like how possessive and abusive he was. It was just wild. But there was a lot of crazy things. Like, she was an artist, and there are paintings of hers that Jacob has bought, and they're around his place, and she'll be like, oh wow, that art piece is so cool. And he's like, yeah, I got it at an auction. It's great. And she doesn't know. So there's a lot of mind games in this, and I think a lot of you who like that type of stuff will like this. I liked other books in this series better. This one, I didn't like the couple is the problem. There's a point in the stories for me where I like there to stop being non-con and it to start being they're both in on it. And that just didn't happen for quite a while. And so I'm just like, dude, now you're just assaulting her constantly. Like, come on, let's get to some good stuff, right? So I ended up giving this one a 3.5 star. And like, I think I rounded down to 3 on Goodreads. It just wasn't quite my thing. But there was somnophilia, there was breath play, there was biting. And then, of course, like, there's non-con, there was stalking, there was domestic abuse, and also abusive parents in this one. So there was a lot. But again, there was some cool stuff in there too, especially for how amnesia was handled. I haven't read a book with amnesia handled like that in a while. And so I was very impressed, especially because, like Fall With Me, I hated how the amnesia was handled. It like ruined that book for me. And there's some others too where I was just like, what are we doing? But that worked. All right, then I had another arc here. Pretty much the rest of these are arcs for this month. I had a lot of them. I read Forgotten Desire by Corinne Michaels. Yay! Guys, I loved this one. It's my favorite in the series. Oh, I was so happy. I really had loved the first one in this one too, which is a single dad, and this one's a single dad. 3 out of the 4 of these were single parents. Like, that's how they do in the small town. But this one is about the sister Whitlock. So this is Brinley Whitlock. And then we have Carson, aka Crew. And this is a second chance romance. It's a single dad, and he's a billionaire. And we met him, if you've been reading the series, we met him before because he is a client that Grady flies for. So he's a private pilot now when he moves back to the small town. Is it Jasper Falls in this one? No, Sugarloaf. It's Sugarloaf in this one. And he's also the owner of the company that does the like organic dairy stuff that in the previous book those 2 dairy farmers were competing for, right? You know how much I disliked the dairy farming in that one. But this one didn't have any dairy farming getting in the way because Brinley, I just loved her. She was really great. But yeah, she's the youngest Whitlock, and she's the sister, and what does she do? I can't remember what her job was. But anyway, he owns a few companies, and yeah, he's a single dad, and he's currently in a custody battle with his ex-wife, who he was forced to marry. So it was 10 years ago that these two met at spring break. So he was visiting a friend in who like went to her college. I can't remember, but they had a week-long fling during spring break. And he knew that he wasn't going to be able to see her after. And he didn't really portray that. So they had this fling. They fell in love in this week, and they've never forgotten each other. He's compared, well, not ever, like, he's compared his wife to this woman all this time. He was forced, basically, he was coerced into marrying this woman that his parents picked for him, who turned out to be an absolutely psychotic bitch. And she is now using their adorable child to try to get money out of him, of course, and extort him and make him look awful. So he's in the middle of a custody battle in the beginning of this. Is Brinley a lawyer? I think she might be a lawyer because she helps out with some advice for him. But either way, so he meets her again at his brother's wedding, or her brother's wedding. He's, knows the Whitlocks now through different things, but he didn't know that she was the sister, which was very interesting that he didn't know her last name for a week that they spent together, but whatever. It was that type of thing, right? And he goes to this wedding and I think he figures it out before. Like, he figures out before the wedding that it's her, but she doesn't know. And so he goes there and he wants to win her. He wants her so bad. He hasn't stopped thinking about her. He married who his parents made him marry, and now he's divorced from this woman. And now he's a billionaire in his own right. Like, he doesn't need his parents' money anymore. He owns companies outside of theirs, and he doesn't answer to them anymore. But he knows that he's in the middle of this custody battle. It might not be the right time, but he's tired of waiting and he wants her. And I love that about him so much. And Brinley, she's very hurt. He just disappeared from her life. She never heard from him again. And the only two men that have ever been in her life romantically they haven't been good because they were both bad to her. One of them being the same man that also cheated on the heroine from the first book, Feud. So he's determined to win her over. And when they have a dinner together or something, a photo gets taken of them. And because he is a famous billionaire, he knows that photo is going to turn up in places and people are going to start saying that he's a playboy, when honestly he hasn't been with anyone at all. Any photos taken of women have been work events, but his ex-wife is going to use those to show that he's not stable for his daughter or whatever. And so Brinley and him end up getting married so that it's a bit of a weak thing, but they end up getting married so that he can show that it wasn't just a fling. This is my new fiance. This is my wife. This isn't just a random thing. And she agrees with this because she needs to have a surgery for her father because he needs part of her liver. Now, if you've read these books, the Whitlocks are mostly from different fathers. So I think there's 4 of them and they had 3 different dads. Maybe they all had different, I don't know, but there's at least 3 different dads. And but that point being the brothers don't have the same dad as her. And she's been in contact with her dad for the past couple of years. He's gotten sober, but he needs part of a liver and she wants to give it to him. And she knows her brothers will not be cool with it because they don't want her to give any part of herself to this scumbag who left her and who wasn't there to be a dad, but it's her choice. She wants it. The problem is, her insurance isn't going to cover this type of thing, and so she's going to need help. And so that is where having this billionaire husband could come into place. But anyway, that's the setup of this. And guys, I just loved this couple so much. He was so sweet. He completely knows that he has to win her over, and he's going to use all the tools he has, which includes buying her a new chicken coop and helping fix up the farm and take care of the animals, because she has kind of this hobby farm of hurt animals and stuff like that, which is really cute. And as well as use his adorable little girl to win her over as well. And yeah, I love them so much. They were so sweet. There's nothing that I didn't like. I mean, yeah, it's very tropey, but all the books, all the small town romances are. This was my favorite one in the series. The third act conflict was minuscule, but also just the perfect amount of it. Honestly, he has there's a scary moment that it has, but it's understandable, and it lasts for the blink of it, you know. It was really great. And I just love this family. I love how it wrapped up. I know we're going to be going to, they set up where the next series will go. I don't even know, but I love this one. So I didn't have anything to complain about. I gave this one 5 stars. There's a 3 on the spice scale. There was quite a few triggers for this one. This one had alcohol addiction, child abandonment, custody battle. There was a car accident, a child in the hospital, and life-threatening medical emergency. So there was a lot of like hospital-related things. So just be careful of that. Alrighty. Next up, I had an ALC of The Rest is History by Sarah Matterson. Wow, this book was fun. Oh my goodness, I had a blast with it. So this one is this is an English one, but it's like current time, and it's about 2 history teachers at a prep school, and on the weekends they dress up and act as King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn at Hampton Court, where tourists will come through and they will pretend to be the king and the queen, and there's all the other queens there too. But the way that this gets started is that our heroine Elodie, she has just gotten a job at this school where Charlie, he's the head of the history department, and so he's technically her boss, and he's very attracted to her. So when she gets hired, he very much like distances himself because he doesn't want to be inappropriate, but he's obsessed with her. He definitely is secretly pining for sure. And then we skip ahead 6 months. So like we see her get hired and him be very like stiff upper lip to her and everything. This is duet narrated by Zara Hampton Brown and Shane East, 2 of my favorite British narrators anyway. And it was just very well, so well performed. And anyway, so then we skip ahead 6 months, and this job at Hampton Court is something he's been doing for a while. And when the normal Anne Boleyn, I believe she has to have a surgery, and so she's going to be gone for a couple months, he asks her if she wants to do it because he knows that she likes history too, and also he thinks she would make the perfect Anne Boleyn because just of how she looks. And he has a thing for her long slender neck. He really does. He is so attracted to her neck and her hair, guys. Like seriously, there's a scene where like her Anne Boleyn necklace, you know, if you know, like there's the one with like the bee that we see in all the things with her, it gets like stuck on her costume and she doesn't want to rip it, and she's like, Charlie, I need your help. And so he has to like untie it on her neck, and like the dude gets like so horny for her with her neck. Like it was cute. I know that sounds gross, but like it was cute, okay? The way that he thinks about her, he's so obsessed with like the small details about her that it doesn't make it feel the way it does when they're thinking about like tits and ass, you know, because he's obsessed with like her neck and her like her eye. Like it's great. It's great. So anyway, so yeah, so it's this relationship between the 2 of them. It's really cute. The drama from this one comes basically all from Charlie. We'll just say it. Charlie has been very badly hurt by his ex-wife. And I'll just tell you, because the trigger warning in this one is infertility. I was going to say infidelity, but infertility. And it is on Charlie's side. So let's just say that. That is a conflict in this one. And it broke my heart. Okay, guys. His ex-wife was a fucking troll. A troll. Oh my gosh, I hate her so much. And it gives him some insecurities that made me very sad for our precious little broken boy. But I ended up enjoying this one a lot. And even though the 3rd act conflict, I wanted to cut a bitch, it was set up well. Like I knew what the conflict was going to be. And so it hurt me, but it was also good. Like it was handled really well. And the way that they make up in the end, like I was crying. So I was like, damn it, I liked this. So I gave this one a 4.5, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. There was some good role playing and dirty talking. There is a tiny bit of them getting like turned on by like, because he takes on the bearing of a king kind of when he's doing it, and so they get a little turned on by each other when they're in their costumes and everything, and so that is kind of cute. It's not their whole relationship by any means. Like they also just like each other a lot. So yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. The other thing I wanted to say quickly is that I did not know this. So Sarah Matterson is another name for Elodie Hart. So that's the one who wrote the like the Unfurl and like the Unstitch and like the erotic series. I did not know this was the same author. And I did think it was a little cheeky that the name of the heroine in this one is Elodie. So I was like, oh my gosh, she named it after herself. But Elodie Hart is her erotic pen name. And it actually got me excited to read some more of hers, because I know she had recently like recovered that series to have hot men on the cover instead of just the names. And I discovered there's an MMF that's in that series right now, and I'm super into MMF, as you'll, I always have been. But after reading the next book that I read, I was like, you know what? I think I want to read another MMF, so I'm gonna. So yeah, the next book that I read was Honeycut by Sierra Simone. This book is officially out on the 16th, but I pre-ordered from Amazon, or not from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble, and I got it early. Now that's been happening a lot lately, so I will say this. I know, well, I talked about this in the last one because it happened with Leather and Lark too, but if you pre-order with Barnes & Noble, if you're a premium member, straight off the bat, you are getting 10% off your order. Plus, they have their reward system, which is great. Plus, they had recently had a triple point weekend. So I ordered some of my Patreon books I have to order from there, and I ended up with like $40 in credits after I did it. So it was great. But when you order from Barnes & Noble, they will release the books as soon as the like release date is available, like once they have them. And so I got this 2 weeks early, and I got Leather and Lark 2 weeks early. So if you're someone who pre-orders from them, definitely try it. And when I pre-ordered it, because of my discount, and there was also the Bloom 25% off, I got this book for only $13. So anyway, okay, enough of that. I read Honeycut, which is book 2 in the Lioness trilogy. So this is inspired by Tristan and Isolde. And this one, it will be an MMF between Mark and Isolde and Tristan. So I don't want to go too deep in, because this is the middle book in a trilogy, and they are dependent books. Like, you must read these in order. They're a continuous story, as a lot of Sierra's series are. Like, she's someone who writes that way. And man, does she keep you on the hook all the way through. And then like when she leaves you, I wanted the next book so bad. It's so bad, but this was so good. So I'll tell you a bit about what Salt in the Wounds is. Salt Kiss is the first one. It is a bodyguard romance times 2. So we have Mark, who is like this rich businessman, ex-CIA. He owns this sex club, and he is going to be marrying this girl named Isolde for basically a political marriage. And she's agreeing to it because she is actually an assassin for this group called the Church. And she wanted to be a nun for the Church, which means she would be like a virgin assassin is what she would basically be. But instead of letting her remain a virgin, she gets told by her father and by her uncle, who's a part of the Church, that you should do this marriage because we want you to be able to spy on Mark and get us information that we need for our, for the work that we do. So in Salt in the Wound, we see her agree to do that. We see her be far too compelled by Mark, more so than she wants to be. And then we see him, put some distance between them. So that happens in Salt in the Wound. Then, when we start Salt Kiss, we are introduced to Tristan. And most of that book is all in Tristan's point of view, as it is. Like, we haven't had Mark's POV at all. But when Tristan gets hired, he becomes Mark's bodyguard at first. And so he's following him around all the time. They eventually end up in like a sexual relationship grows with them. And again, I won't go into all the details, but basically Tristan has fallen in love with Mark. Mark makes it clear that, I'm not emotionally available to anyone. I'm a dominant. I will fuck you. We'll have a good time, but that's all it'll be. And after being his bodyguard, I think it's for like 6 months, he finds out, and maybe it's even longer. I don't know how long that it's for. I don't know. He finds out that Mark is actually engaged, right? He's been engaged to Isolde for 4 years. They've been engaged this whole time. Haven't been around each other though. And now it's time for her to come back from her schooling and marry Mark. And Mark ends up getting injured and cannot go and pick up his bride. So he sends Tristan to do it. So then Tristan goes to get Isolde and brings her back. And during their trip back, they discover they're both in love with Mark, and they also might be falling in love with each other. So that's a bit of Salt Kiss. That's a brief summary of that one. Honeycut starts right where we ended, of them arriving there and meeting Mark after having they've fallen in love with each other, and they're both in love with Mark. So this book, lots of angst. There's cheating, there's lots of kinky fun times, there's emotional warfare, there's spying, and there's assassin. Like, there's so much in this book. And it also just blew me away. So because I had the physical book, I actually did some annotating in this one just for me. You know, I always say that it's like, I have made it a part of my business annotating books for people, and I love doing it. I would not spend the amount of hours I do if I didn't. But because I do that as a business, I don't often get to annotate just for myself anymore. You know, there usually has to be a purpose. And so I had gotten these new annotation stickers from this one Etsy shop, and they're so cute. Let me see if I can find a cute one. And so I decided to annotate this all for myself. Let me see if I can find a good one. And there was some really cute stickers in here. So like this one says like God level. So I had a blast. And I got to the end of this book and I was just sitting there and I was like, how do I feel about this? Like, how do I feel about all the revelations and just all of the heartbreak and the angst? And I gave it 6 stars. I did. I gave it 6 stars. I really, really liked it. And I'm dying for Bitter Burn will be the last one. So she leaves us on a cliffhanger, of course. But I also feel like good about it because there's a lot of stuff that we find out that I was like, damn, that's cool. So I also did just receive an ALC of this book from Must Love Audio. So I'm probably going to reread this one. Well, not probably. I will because I need to listen to it and review the audiobook. But I want to listen to it and read it again and just like experience it all again because it's so good. Sierra Simone's best. So yeah, I gave it 6 stars. It's a 5 on the spice scale. You're going to have BDSM, voyeurism, punishments, impact play, degradation, like cum play, just toy, like all the things. Just all the things exist. It's great. And then yeah, trigger warning, there's cheating. There's cheating. There's religious trauma, violence, loss of a loved one. There's a lot in there. All right. See, I still find a way to talk about everything. The last book that I finished was an absolute surprise and a complete delight. And this was another ALC that I had from Must Love Audio, and it was called The Feud by Sawyer Bennett. Now, I haven't read a Sawyer Bennett in a long time. I have read some of her books many years ago now. But this one, you know, it said it was a cowboy single dad. But it said it was a friends to lovers, and I was very interested because, I mean, the title was called The Feud, so I didn't know what I would be getting into. But this one is about a feud between the Mardragons and the Blackburns, and they have been at odds since the 1800s, basically, and the Blackburns do horse breeding and horse raising and training and everything, and the Mardragons are alcohol distillers and all that jazz. They have businesses all over the world that do that, and it's just wild. And the main hero in this, his name is Ethan, and Ethan is the oldest son, and he's basically been running the business because his parents are retired and they're not as involved in it. His lovely parents, they're wonderful. And yeah, he's the oldest, I think, of 4 siblings. I think there's maybe 5. I don't know. There's a few of them. And he finds out at the beginning of this book that he has a daughter with a Mardragon. Now, the Mardragon woman is not our heroine. We'll get around to it. But he has a 9-year-old daughter that he didn't know about. So him and, I think Diane was her name. I might not recall correctly, but I think it was Diane. They had a one-night stand where they got very drunk and they fucked. And she lives in France and runs a winery over there for the family. So she's never been back to see him. And he never knew. She kept it a secret. Well, she has recently died. She had brain cancer. She passed away. And so Ethan is finding out about his daughter when literally he gets contacted by a lawyer that he has a child. And he's not planning to keep her. He's planning to sign over his rights to the Mardragons. He's like, I don't want to get involved in this. But when he is read the will from this woman where she's like, I want my daughter to be raised by you, I think that's the right decision, it's very confusing because he's like, but we hate each other, so what's going on? And we meet this child, and her name is Sylvie, and she is French and very hurt by all of this and just has this hate for him because she's been raised that way. And so it's a very confusing situation we're dropped into. And so our heroine in this book is actually Sylvie's new principal. Her name is Marcy, and she is a divorcee. She is a very sweet, caring woman who loves the children, and she gets involved in this when Ethan is desperate for help. He wants to connect with his daughter. He wants this to be a good place for her, but he doesn't know how to get past all of this hate that's been built into her. And he's like, should I just give up and let her be with her grandparents? And there was just something about the fact that Diane said that he should raise her. And he's like, why will this woman trust me when she hates me? He doesn't understand. And Marcy is there to kind of help him with his daughter. So that's why this is a friends to lovers. But I will say a large part of this book is about him and his daughter finding middle ground and him falling for her. The romance, once it happens, is just sweet and soft and so loving. There's no angst in the romance at all. The angst in this story is Ethan and his daughter connecting. And so if you love single dads, if you love that, like, you know, finding each other and doing that, like, I think you'll really like this. And yeah, the romance, it's not as big, but it was really beautiful. I loved it. And this family, like, this felt like a soap opera. And the feud, you learn the details of the feud and why it exists. And like, it was just, I loved it. So I gave this 5 stars. The spice was, honestly, it was barely a 2-star. There's not a lot of it. But if you like it quieter, if you don't need it as smutty, if you just want to, there's lots of horse riding and there's farming and there's animals and there's great family, like, it was wonderful. And I know that the next book in this, which is only coming a month later, I can't wait for the audio of that one. Like, geez, I can't wait. Is going to be about Gabriel Mardragon, who is the brother of Diane. And so, like, we see him in this one, you know, trying to make the right decisions for his niece and everything. But the way that this is written is, this is the Bluegrass, what's the series called? The Bluegrass Empire. Oh, I spelled it wrong. The Bluegrass Empire is what it's called. And this book is called The Feud. And the next one is, and it's a Blackburn novel, and the next one is called, like, Forbidden, I think, and it's a Mardragon novel. So we know we're going to be seeing everything from their side now, which I'm very interested, because to me, when you're reading it from Ethan's side, like, you just see the Mardragons as this, like, big evil. And so I'm interested to see how Sawyer Bennett will have me see it from the other side now. So I really loved it. I absolutely recommend it. And the audiobook was great. This one was narrated by Kit Swan and Sean Masters. Sean Masters, y'all. Oh, the sexy cowboy in him. Like, oh, it was so good. I loved it. So that is everything I read this week. It was a great week, you guys. I might not have read as much as my normal volume of things, but the books were top tier. Really, they were. I'm really looking forward to some reads for the next week. We have a lot more new releases, and yeah, it's gonna be great. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I love y'all so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.